I swear, if that smug bastard had said one more word, I'd have broken his perfect white teeth into piano keys. We were at a dinner I didn't even want. I thought it was a chance for my wife, Ashley, and me to finally talk about the distance growing between us. She had asked for a serious conversation over dinner. Serious conversation, to me, usually means things like mortgages, medical bills, or maybe the vacation we kept putting off. Turns out, her definition was more in the neighborhood of ambush. He was already sitting there when I arrived. Chase Donovan, her so-called colleague. Tight black shirt, hair gelled like he had stock in it, grinning like the cat who not only got the cream, but also owned the dairy farm. And there was Ashley, seated right next to him, her hand suspiciously close to his thigh, laughing way too loud at jokes I couldn't hear but already knew weren't funny. "Logan," she said sweetly, gesturing across the table. "This is Chase. You've heard me mention him from work." He leaned forward, eyes locking on mine like we were about to duel at high noon. "I'll make this simple," he said smoothly. "You've got two options, Logan. Leave quietly, or face me like a man." Ashley didn't flinch. She smiled. Now, I'm not the type to cause a scene, but something about the way her lips curled like she'd just won a prize fight made my fists clench under the table. I took a breath, forced a smile, and leaned in. "You want your teeth whole," I said evenly. "Or in pieces?" Chase blinked, just once. That's when Ashley hissed under her breath. "Logan, stop. You're embarrassing me." Embarrassing her. After she paraded me into a restaurant just to watch her little workplace hero try to unseat me at my own table. That's when I knew. This wasn't the start of an affair. It was the grand finale. Curtain call. She'd been rehearsing this betrayal for months, and I was the clueless actor who just walked on stage with no script. I didn't storm out. I didn't yell. I sat back, looked at both of them, and I smiled. Because in that exact moment, I decided something important. If Ashley thought she'd get the last laugh, she had no idea who she was married to. The car ride home was quiet. Not the peaceful kind, though. More like the kind you hear before a tornado hits. Ashley stared out the passenger window like she was in a movie about a misunderstood genius, while I kept both hands on the wheel and thought about how much I hated the sound of her perfume. Funny thing is, I used to love it. Back when it smelled like home instead of warning signs. Finally, she broke the silence. "You embarrassed me tonight." I glanced at her, half expecting a smirk. Nope. She was dead serious. "I embarrassed you," I repeated, my voice flat. "By not letting your boyfriend audition for the role of my replacement over lobster bisque?" "Don't be dramatic, Logan. He's just a friend." I almost laughed. Almost. Friends don't threaten to take my wife like they're buying a used car. Her jaw tightened. She turned, finally meeting my eyes. "Maybe if you weren't so predictable, I wouldn't need friends like Chase." That one stung. Not because it was true, but because she said it so casually, like tossing a tissue in the trash. "Predictable," I echoed. "You mean faithful? Steady. The kind of guy who didn't notice his wife playing dress rehearsal with another man." She scoffed and muttered, "You're overreacting." That's when I realized something. She wasn't nervous. She wasn't sorry. She wasn't even hiding it anymore. No, Ashley was comfortable, like the cheating was just another Tuesday on her calendar. And me? I just smiled, because while she thought she had me pegged as predictable, she had no clue that I was already 3 steps ahead. See, she thought she'd humiliated me at that dinner. What she didn't realize was that she'd just given me all the permission I needed to change the rules. "All right," I said calmly, pulling into our driveway. "You win. You're right." She looked surprised. "About what?" "About me being predictable," I said, putting the car in park. "But I'll tell you something, Ash. You're about to see a side of me you've never met before." She smirked, like she thought I was bluffing. And that's exactly what I wanted her to think. The next morning, Ashley was humming in the kitchen like the night before hadn't happened. Coffee brewing, eggs sizzling, her little, "I'm the perfect wife" performance back on stage. "Morning, babe," she said, planting a kiss on my cheek. Like clockwork. Like nothing was broken. I smiled. Played along. "Morning." She had no idea. See, I'm not the type to rage or smash things. I'm the type to observe, to collect, to wait until the trap is so perfectly set that by the time it snaps shut, the other person doesn't even realize they walked into it. That day, I started small. I didn't argue. I didn't accuse. I just started watching. Her phone, face down more than usual. Her gym sessions, suddenly running long. Her work calls, always needing the patio for privacy. I'd ask harmless questions. Long day, new workout routine, Chase treating you well at the office. She'd laugh and roll her eyes. You're paranoid. But paranoia is messy. This wasn't paranoia. This was math. I was connecting dots she didn't know I could see. And while she thought she was clever, I started preparing. Quietly. Changed the passwords on our joint accounts. Made copies of every bank statement. Set up a private email she didn't know about. Even ordered a little camera disguised as a smoke detector for the living room. I wasn't looking for proof anymore. I already had it in the way she looked at me like a substitute teacher. No, I was looking for timing. Because Ashley thought she was winning a game. But I was building the board. That night, as she scrolled through her phone, smiling at whatever Chase was texting, she said, "You're awfully quiet." "Just thinking," I replied. "About what?" I smiled. "About how interesting the next few weeks are going to be." She didn't know it yet, but I just declared war. You know what the funny thing about betrayal is? It doesn't start with lipstick stains or hotel receipts. It starts with details. The little things. Like the way Ashley stopped leaving her coffee mug in the sink. She used to do it every single morning, like a ritual. I'd nag her about it. She'd laugh. I'd rinse it. Our dance. But now, she rinsed it herself. Every day, like she was suddenly auditioning for Best Supporting Wife. Or the way she started dressing up for the grocery store. Full makeup, curled hair, perfume heavy enough to be noticed in the produce aisle. "Bananas are 2 for 1 today," she'd say, batting her lashes like she was walking into a casting call. And me? I didn't call her out. I just nodded, smiled, and added her little performances to my mental file. Because the trick wasn't to confront her. It was to let her get comfortable. One Thursday, she came home later than usual. Said she'd stayed after for team drinks. She kicked off her heels at the door and called out, "Logan? You awake?" I was sitting at the kitchen counter, nursing a coffee I didn't need. "Yeah. How were drinks?" I asked casually. She blinked. A flicker of panic. Just a second, but I saw it. "Oh, fine," she said too quickly. "We had margaritas." You know, girl talk. Girl talk. I raised an eyebrow. "Yes, Logan," she said with a little smirk. "Not everything is a conspiracy." "Of course," I said, sipping. "By the way, your girls left a charger in the car." Her face went pale. She recovered fast, though. "Oh, must have been Sarah's. She's always losing those." "Makes sense," I said, smiling. I didn't mention I'd checked her call history before she walked in. No Sarah, but plenty of Chase. That night, she curled up next to me in bed like she hadn't just been caught lying. "You're warm," she murmured. I wrapped an arm around her, not because I wanted to, but because I wanted her to feel safe. Let her believe I was still her oblivious, predictable husband. "In the dark," she whispered, "I love you." I almost laughed. Instead, I whispered back, "I know." The next week, the cracks widened. I told her I had a late meeting Thursday night. I didn't. I parked my car 3 blocks away and waited. Sure enough, at 7:15, a rideshare pulled up to the curb. Ashley, dressed like she was heading to a red carpet, slipped into the back seat. I followed. She didn't notice me trailing the car downtown. Didn't notice me when she hopped out 2 blocks from a hotel and walked straight through the revolving door. I didn't follow her inside. No need. I already had enough. Instead, I snapped a photo from across the street, the timestamp glowing at the bottom. Then I drove home, calm as ever. When she walked through the door at midnight, hair slightly tousled, cheeks flushed, I was sitting on the couch reading the same page of a book I hadn't actually been looking at for hours. "Long meeting?" she asked, toeing off her heels. "Yeah," I said, closing the book. "How about you? Girls' night again." She smiled, wide, too wide. "Yeah, margarita Thursdays." I smiled back. "Sounds fun." The next morning, I slid the photo I'd taken into my desk drawer. Didn't say a word. Not yet. You'd think the satisfaction would come from catching her red-handed. It didn't. The satisfaction came from watching her underestimate me. At breakfast on Saturday, she leaned across the table, her hair still damp from a shower. "You've been quiet lately," she said, trying to sound playful. Should I be worried? I looked up from my phone and smiled. "Only if you've got a guilty conscience." She froze. Just long enough. Then she laughed. Too loud. "You're ridiculous," she said, shaking her head. "Probably," I said, taking a sip of coffee. "But I'm never wrong." She tilted her head, studying me like she was trying to read a book in a language she didn't understand. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing, I said. Just a thought. And then I changed the subject to groceries. Because nothing unnerves a liar more than silence where they expect confrontation. The cracks really split open 2 nights later. She left her phone charging on the kitchen counter while she showered. Normally, she kept it glued to her like a pacemaker. I told myself I wouldn't look. Then it lit up. A notification. From Chase. Last night was perfect. Can't wait for next time. I didn't open it. Didn't need to. The lock screen was enough. I snapped a photo, set the phone back exactly how she'd left it, and sat down to wait. She came out of the shower humming, towel wrapped around her, smelling like the expensive shampoo she only used for special occasions. "What ya doing?" she asked lightly. "Thinking about buying a new car," I said, scrolling through nothing on my phone. "Ours is getting old." She brightened. "Really? What kind?" "Not sure yet," I said, "but I'm thinking of something reliable. Something that won't break down when you least expect it." Her smile faltered just slightly. I filed it away. Here's the part where you'd expect me to explode. To confront her, demand answers, maybe storm out like some daytime soap opera husband. But that's not me. Instead, I started planning. I moved some savings into a separate account she didn't know existed. Transferred the title of my truck to my brother. Started leaving subtle breadcrumbs around the house that would make her wonder if maybe I was the one drifting away. Because here's the thing. Ashley thought she was playing chess. But I'd already built the board, set the pieces, and decided exactly how the game would end. And when the time came, I wasn't just going to leave. I was going to make sure she regretted underestimating me for the rest of her life. That night, as we sat on the couch, her scrolling her phone, me pretending to watch the game, she glanced at me and said, "You're not mad at me, are you?" I smiled without looking away from the TV. "No, Ashley, I'm not mad." I paused, then added quietly, "I'm just patient." She frowned, like she didn't understand. Which was fine. She'd understand soon enough. If you'd asked Ashley back then, she would have told you she was the smartest person in the room, that she had everything under control. The truth? She was already standing on the trapdoor. She just didn't know I had the rope. The following week, she made her biggest mistake yet. It was a Friday evening. She claimed she had a late work meeting. I nodded, wished her good luck, even offered to pick her up if she needed. She declined a little too fast. "Don't wait up," she said, smiling like she was starring in her own little soap opera. "Oh, I won't," I said. She thought I meant I'd be asleep. What I actually meant was, I had better plans. The second she left, I slipped her old iPad out of the drawer. She thought she'd wiped it clean years ago, but what she didn't know was that it still backed up to the same cloud account as her phone. A few clicks, and there it was, her messages. And boy, Chase was a poet. "Can't stop thinking about you. Wish you were here now. He's so clueless." Clueless. I almost laughed. If only he knew how many moves ahead I already was. I screenshotted everything, forwarded it to my private email. Then I put the iPad back exactly where it was. No tampering marks, no suspicion. By the time she walked back in at 11:42 p.m., cheeks flushed, hair tousled, I was sitting in bed with a novel open like I hadn't moved in hours. "Long meeting?" I asked without looking up. She kissed my forehead. "Yeah. Exhausting." "Poor thing," I said, patting her hand. "Get some rest." She curled up beside me, sighing in that fake exhausted way people do when they're trying too hard to sell it. And I thought, go ahead. Sleep. Dream about your perfect little secret life. Tomorrow, I start rearranging the pieces. The next morning, I played the perfect husband. Pancakes, fresh coffee, even flowers from the store. She blinked when she saw the spread on the table. "Wow," she said, kissing my cheek. "What's the occasion?" "Just wanted to remind you why you married me," I said with a smile. Her eyes softened. Maybe a little guilt, maybe relief that I hadn't caught her. She leaned in and whispered, "You're too good to me." I grinned. Don't I know it? Here's the thing about people like Ashley. They thrive on drama, on tension, on confrontation. It feeds them. So when you don't give them what they expect, it throws them completely off balance. I stayed calm. I stayed sweet. I let her believe she still had me wrapped around her finger. Meanwhile, I was working behind the curtain. I called our bank and requested copies of every account statement from the past year. I noticed a few charges she couldn't explain away. A boutique hotel 2 towns over, a restaurant she swore she never liked, and a suspiciously expensive bottle of cologne that I'd never seen on my dresser. I didn't confront her. I filed it away. I also called my buddy Ryan, who happened to work in IT security. Hypothetically, I asked, how hard would it be to recover deleted messages from an iCloud backup? Ryan chuckled. For you? Free. Send me the login. By Monday, I had everything. Every late-night message. Every photo. Every can't wait to see you again that she'd ever thought she'd erased. And still, I said nothing. One evening, as we sat watching TV, she shifted closer, resting her head on my shoulder. You've been different lately, she said softly. Less stressed. It's nice. I kissed the top of her head. Guess I'm learning to let go of things. What kind of things? She asked, a little too quickly. I smiled at the TV. Things that don't matter anymore. Her head lifted just slightly. I felt the tension ripple through her. She wanted to ask, but she didn't. Instead, she forced a laugh and said, well, whatever it is, I like it. Good. I thought. You'll like it even more when I'm done. The real crack came on a Wednesday. She left her laptop open on the kitchen table. Normally, she was careful, always logging out, always closing tabs. But that day, maybe she was in a rush. Or maybe she thought I'd stopped caring enough to check. I didn't even have to snoop. The screen lit up when I walked past. An email. From Chase. Next weekend can't come soon enough. I booked the cabin. Just you and me. He'll never know. The irony almost knocked me over. He'll never know. I took a deep breath. Snapped a photo. Closed the laptop. When she came home later that night, humming as she unpacked a grocery bag, I leaned against the counter and said casually, we should do a getaway soon. Just us. Her eyes flickered. That sounds nice. Where would you want to go? I asked. Oh, I don't know. Maybe somewhere in the mountains. Mountains sound good, I said. Cozy cabin, maybe? She froze. Just for a fraction of a second. Then she forced a smile. Yeah, that sounds perfect. I smiled back, pouring us both a glass of wine. Then it's a plan. That night, lying in bed, I watched her sleep. She looked peaceful, like a woman living two lives and convinced she could juggle both without dropping the ball. And me? I felt calmer than I had in months. Because I knew something she didn't. The trap wasn't just set. The clock was ticking. Over the next few days, I let her dig herself deeper. She whispered on the phone in the bathroom. I pretended not to notice. She worked late twice. I kissed her forehead when she came home. Each lie was another brick in the wall she was building around herself. And I was the one holding the mortar. The following Friday, she came into the kitchen, cheeks flushed, hair still damp from the shower. Hey, she said lightly. I'm going to a work retreat next weekend. Overnight. Oh yeah? I asked, keeping my voice casual. Where? Some cabin. Just for team bonding, you know. I nodded. Sounds great. You deserve a break. She smiled, relieved. You don't mind? Of course not, I said. Have fun. Her relief was so thick you could cut it with a knife. What she didn't know was that I already had the address. Already knew the check-in time. Already had a plan that would flip her perfect little weekend on its head. Because if she thought she was going to spend that getaway living a fairy tale, she was dead wrong. It was going to be the weekend she realized just how badly she'd underestimated the predictable husband she thought she'd outsmarted. Ashley was humming when she packed. That's how I knew she was excited. She always hummed when she thought she'd gotten away with something. Don't wait up, she said Friday morning, tossing a bag into the back of her car. I'll be back Sunday evening. I kissed her cheek. Enjoy yourself. You deserve it. She gave me a look, cautious, like she still half expected me to say something. But when I didn't, she relaxed. Smiled. Thanks, Logan. I'll call you tomorrow. I waved her off, then watched from the upstairs window as she drove away. What she didn't know was that I'd already been to the cabin. The day before, I'd taken a long business drive and scoped the place out. Quaint little thing, wood-paneled walls, stone fireplace, big bay window overlooking the lake. Romantic, if you were into that sort of thing. I'd also introduced myself to the property manager as her husband, slipped him a little cash, said my wife and I were working through some things, and I wanted everything just right for her surprise. He smiled, said he understood, gave me a spare key. What Ashley also didn't know was that I had cameras in place. Not the kind you find at Walmart. These were discreet, motion-triggered, synced straight to my phone. By 7:30 that evening, I was sitting at home with a bourbon in hand, watching my wife giggle as Chase opened a bottle of wine in that cozy little cabin. She twirled her hair, leaned against him, kissed him like she hadn't kissed me in months. Predictable. Almost boring. I didn't get angry watching it. Not anymore. The anger had burned out weeks ago. What replaced it was something colder. Sharper. Because this wasn't about catching her. It was about finishing the game. Saturday morning, I got a notification from one of the cameras. There she was, barefoot, dancing around the kitchen while Chase cooked breakfast. She fed him a strawberry, laughing like a teenager. I almost smiled. Not because it was cute, but because she looked so sure of herself. So untouchable. I spent the rest of the day setting my stage. First, I emailed myself the camera clips. Hours of evidence. I organized them neatly into a folder labeled Divorce Exhibit A. Then I drafted a few messages. One to her parents, one to her boss, one to her closest friends, each with attachments ready to go. All I had to do was hit send. Finally, I packed a small bag. Not much, just the essentials. Because by the time Sunday rolled around, I wasn't coming back here. That evening, Ashley texted me. "Hey babe, the retreat's going great. Miss you." I stared at the message, then typed back. "Miss you too. Be safe." She had no idea she'd just handed me the perfect ending. Sunday afternoon, I drove out to the cabin. I didn't storm in, didn't bang on the door. I parked a little ways down the road and waited until I saw Chase's car leave. He must have had somewhere to be. Work, maybe. Or maybe he just assumed Ashley could handle the cleanup. Perfect. I gave it 20 minutes. Then I walked up, key in hand. Ashley was in the living room, curled up with a blanket, scrolling her phone. She looked up, startled. "Logan? What are you?" I smiled. Surprise. Her face went pale. I thought you had work today." "Finished early," I said, setting my bag down. "Figured I'd join you for the last night." She blinked, forcing a smile. "That's sweet." "Yeah," I said, wandering around like I owned the place. "Real sweet." Her eyes darted to the door, then back to me. "You should have called." "Where's Chase?" I asked casually, brushing dust off the mantel. She froze. "Who?" I looked at her, really looked at her, and chuckled. "You know, Ashley, you've never been a good liar." "Not once." She swallowed hard. "Logan, I can explain." I held up a hand. "No need. I've got it all covered." She blinked, confused. "What do you mean?" I pulled out my phone and tapped the screen. A video popped up. Her, twirling barefoot in the kitchen, kissing Chase like a prom queen. I let it play just long enough for her face to drain of color. "Oh my God," she whispered. "Relax," I said calmly. "No one's seen this. Yet." She lunged forward. "Logan, please, delete it." I stepped back. "Careful. You wouldn't want me to accidentally hit send." Her hands shook. "What do you want?" That was the million-dollar question. And the answer? I'd been crafting it for weeks. "I want you," I said slowly, "to know exactly how it feels to lose everything you thought you controlled." She opened her mouth, probably to spit some excuse, but I cut her off. "Tomorrow morning," I said, "you're going to walk into that house of ours, and everything will look normal. But your accounts will be frozen. Your job? Gone. Once your boss sees the little extracurricular retreat you had." Her lip trembled. "You wouldn't." "Oh, I would," I said, my voice steady. "And your parents? They'll know too. I'm sure they'll love the video of their daughter prancing around with some guy while her husband paid the mortgage." Tears welled in her eyes. "Please, Logan, don't do this. We can fix it." I laughed softly. "Fix it? You had your chance to fix it. But you didn't want a husband. You wanted a safety net. And congratulations, you just set it on fire." She reached for me, desperate now. "I'll stop. I swear. It was a mistake." I tilted my head. Funny. Mistakes don't usually come with wine, weekend cabins, and playlists. Her face crumpled. For the first time in months, Ashley wasn't smug. She was small, frightened, and I realized something. I didn't even want revenge anymore. I already had it. Because the cruelest revenge isn't shouting or throwing her out or even showing the world her lies. It's letting her know she's powerless and that her perfect little kingdom just crumbled, not with a bang, but with a smile. I slipped my phone back into my pocket. "Don't worry, Ash. I'm not sending anything. Yet." She looked up, hope flickering. "Really?" I nodded. "As long as you play nice when the divorce papers hit your desk." Her shoulders sagged. She nodded. "Okay, I'll sign whatever you want." I smiled. "Good girl." Then I picked up my bag, walked to the door, and looked back one last time. "Enjoy the cabin," I said. "It's your last vacation on my dime." And with that, I left her sitting there, blanket clutched around her shoulders, the weight of her ruined little empire finally settling in. Driving away, I didn't feel anger, didn't feel sorrow, just clarity. Ashley thought she'd written the script for our marriage. But the ending? That belonged to me. Monday morning, Ashley woke up thinking she'd wriggled out of the noose. That's her problem. She always thought short-term. I'd already been 3 steps ahead. By the time she logged onto her work laptop, her boss had an anonymous email with a tidy little folder of her retreat highlights. Not the raunchy stuff, just enough to make her professionalism look like a punchline. By lunch, she called me. Logan, her voice trembled. They suspended me. I sipped my coffee. That's so. They said I violated the code of conduct. Someone sent them. She stopped, probably realizing. You did this. I didn't confirm. I didn't deny. Just let the silence do the work. Logan, please, she whispered. I need this job. I smiled. You should have thought of that before you went camping with Mr. Tight Shirt. By Wednesday, the second domino dropped. Her parents called. Ashley came to us in tears. Her mother said, "Is it true?" I didn't sugarcoat. Yes. And if you'd like proof, I can send it. There was a long pause. Then her father, stern as ever, said, "Don't. We believe you." Ashley always wanted to be their golden child. She craved their approval like oxygen. Watching it slip away, that was better than any courtroom victory. That night, she stormed into the house, mascara streaked down her cheeks. You ruined me, she spat. I looked up from my book. No, Ash. You ruined yourself. I just handed you the mirror. The divorce papers hit her desk the next week. She signed without protest. No fight for the house. No demands for alimony. She just signed. The day we walked out of the courthouse, she tried one last swing. You'll regret this, she hissed in the parking lot. I chuckled. Maybe, but at least I'll regret it in peace. Then I handed her an envelope. She frowned, confused, and opened it. Inside, a single USB stick. What's this? She asked. Everything you tried to hide, I said. Consider it a souvenir. Just know, if you ever try to make trouble, that stick has copies. Her face drained of color. She shoved it back at me, but I just smiled and walked away. Here's where you expect me to say I rode off into the sunset. Found a new love, built a new life. Not yet. See, the revenge wasn't just about Ashley. It was about me. About proving I wasn't the predictable man she thought I was. A week after the divorce, I got a call. From Chase. You happy now? He sneered. You destroyed her. I laughed. You think you're walking away clean? Buddy, you were just a pawn. What the hell does that mean? I smiled into the phone. Ask your wife. Silence. Then a click. Because here's the part Ashley never knew. Chase wasn't single. And thanks to a little anonymous delivery, his wife now had her own folder of cabin highlights. Ashley thought she'd built a fairy tale with her knight in shining armor. Instead, she ended up alone, jobless, and publicly humiliated, while her shiny new boyfriend got tossed out of his own house. And me? I didn't need to raise my voice or break a sweat. I just sat back and watched the dominoes fall exactly where I placed them. So no, I didn't lose. I orchestrated the ending. And the best part? She never saw it coming.